sister's youngest is 18, her eldest is 24 in December, and my brother's kids are getting into their early teens. So that is shifting as well. So it's not so much the small children and the magic of Christmas from that perspective. So it's no longer like this Disney fairy tale Christmas. It's kind of shifting into more like, hey, we can have adult conversations. We can have some more grown up conversations. So also that is shifting. But what I wanted to come back to is that for them, it was important for us to be a part of it. So also their disappointment of us saying, you know what, it's too hard this year. I need to look after me. They were disappointed about this. So we had to have that conversation with each other. Okay, hey, I really appreciate that you want me there, but it's too hard for me. And I know that you try to understand, but I really have to look after me. I have to put my self-care first. And I'm sorry that is disappointing for you, but you're going to have to find a way to navigate your way through that disappointment. That's not up to me to fix.
Welcome to the Full Stop Podcast, a childless community podcast with Michael Hughes, Berenice Smith and me, Sarah Lawrence. If you're new to the podcast, we're here to delve beneath the surface of the childless identity, to cover what's going on in the wider community and to look at the topics that really affect us. Our goal is to help and support those of you out in the community by sharing the stories and the voices that make up our narrative so that you too can begin to find yours. We also aim to inform and educate those who aren't members of our community so that they can begin to understand and support those people in their lives who are facing a life without children. In this episode, we're joined by Karin Enfield de Vries, a coach and counsellor who works under the name of Pure Transformations, but who also works with Sarah and Yvonne John under the name Sacred Woman, offering workshops and retreats. Karin joined us to talk about festivities, what it brings up for us, and what practical tips we have for coping with what can be a very tough time of year for many of us. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode, all about how we can learn to cope, thrive, or even survive the festive period.
Welcome to the Full Stop Podcast. Yes, welcome to the Full Stop Podcast. We are talking about triggers and celebrations. So not necessarily the C word, but all the other words that happen throughout the year. And I was thinking how so many of those celebrations that we have throughout the year are all to do with, or feel very much like they're to do with family and with children. So we are welcoming today Karin, who joins us. It seems like we only saw you very recently, to be fair, in Chester. But welcome to the Full Stop again.
Thank you so much, Berenice. And hi, Michael. Hi, Sarah. I'm so pleased to be here with you guys. And yes, I was so pleased that we got to meet all of us in person in Chester back in September at Childless Childless Story House, however people refer to that. And what a wonderful live meeting that was. I'm still buzzing from it, to be completely honest with you. So I'm very happy to be back in the fold of the Full Stop today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and talking to us about this. So where do we want to start? Because we're just talking about traditions on Christmas Day. Michael, we're talking about your mum cooking Christmas dinner in Australia, despite it being 40 degrees. But it kind of strikes me that that's sort of like traditions. They can hang heavy, can't they, sometimes? And when our lives change dramatically, sometimes those traditions don't fit into our jigsaw.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about Christmas and how that has morphed over time, and it is. Look, for me, it's actually quite a triggering time, I have to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know about you, the rest of you. How do you feel about Christmas?
I find it really tough because I think for me, it was the biggest occasion in our family thing, and my family are huge, massive. I've said before that my grandfather was one of 9, so his siblings, they all had children, apart from one, but they all had kids. So then they had kids, and my dad is one of 4, and they've all gone off and had children too. So it felt for me, as I got older, like I was also mourning what the innocence of it all when I was a kid before I wanted to be a mother. So there's a mourning of that, and mourning of the family house is gone because my grandmother has passed away. So the big family house where we had Christmas and it was all done in a certain way, I still followed those traditions. So we had our presents in the afternoon. You had to go all the way through everything to get the presents and the dog walk, and everything had time, loosely so, but it was all in an order. So for me, the order of things as much as anything else, and the mourning of so many traditions. And I find that really, really, really hard sometimes. And then also there's the added mourning of being childless as well on top of that.
I really struggle with the music. So my house, we used to play all of the songs, Elton John, Mariah Carey. It used to be a really loud day, and now it's a really quiet day. And actually, I really struggle with that. I find it really difficult to put the music on. I choose to celebrate. Some years I just don't have it in me to bother. But if I choose to celebrate, I still really struggle with the music, because every year, Mum had this, LP. That's how old I am. Had the LP of the Now It's Christmas. Do you remember that, with all all of the songs and everything? I was just like, I cannot listen to some of those songs because it just reminds me of what Christmas used to be like, and it's never going to be the same. It's just such a difficult day, I think, for those reasons. It's so multi-layered, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm listening to all of you, and I recognize things from my own experience of Christmas or the festive season. So however people spend this time of year and whatever festival or whatever religious day you're celebrating, or maybe not even, because I'm also seeing a shift where people are like, you know what? It's just a day in the year, and I'm steering away from it. I'm not in that thought pattern myself. For me, Christmas has shifted over the years, and it keeps shifting in the sense that when I first came to be childless 12 years ago, almost 13 years ago now, I didn't even got my decorations out. I didn't put any tinsel or lights up or anything like that. Everything felt bleak, everything felt dark, and I just felt I also had to be in that darkness, and there was no element of light or anything like that for me at first. And then slowly that kind of shifted into one year finding myself craving that kind of, those little, Berenice, you were talking about your fireplace and how you've got fairy lights all around them and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, I just, so one year that kind of started to shift. And now, yeah, it's bring on Christmas. But then bring on my Christmas. I've, over the years, as those of you who know me, and you guys know that as well, I've kind of reclaimed Christmas over the past few years. I've talked about that before with you as well, but also with others. And yeah, it's now just a day where I'm kind of forming my own traditions. I want the Christmas dinner. I want the music, even though sometimes it is triggering. But so it's constantly shifting. And some years I wanted a big Christmas with friends and family around the table, and this year I think it's going to be a bit more quieter, but maybe more just focused on what I want and what I need. I'm married. I do have a husband, and it's going to see, hey, what is it going to look like for us too? And last year I lost my mum, so that kind of brought a whole different dimension to Christmas. So it keeps shifting for me. I think for anybody who recognizes what I'm sharing here as well, I think it's just kind of good to check in with yourself, just around this time of year. Okay, what is it that I would like for Christmas this year? Do I want to retreat? Do I want to stay a little bit in the darkness? Or actually, am I going to find ways to bring some light in for myself and create celebrations or traditions, that fit with where I'm at this year? Because I think that also shifts for everyone, as we luckily grow older and maybe a bit more wiser. And also I think it also depends, and I'll stop talking after this, I think it also depends on where you are in your journey around the mourning, around the grief, around your childlessness, and how that also feeds in to Christmas traditions. Or perhaps as we are growing older, luckily, I mentioned earlier, our surroundings, our family dynamics also change. Like I just said, my mum passed away, so that shifts my family dynamic as well. So where does that leave me in relation to the festive season? So I think there's a lot of variables and a lot of dependencies there, but I think it's good to give yourself permission just to check in. Hey, what is it that I need? What is it I want?
your zone of control, isn't it? What can you control over Christmas Day or any occasion really? And what can you do and what can you not do? What's too much at that time? I like it very much. Yeah,
difficult balancing act, isn't it? Because it's the FOMO, the fear of missing out as well, isn't it? It's kind of like, I found myself early stages sort of retreating. I didn't really want to get involved with any of it. But actually, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because you think you all of the adverts, all of the things that you see out there sort of say, right, you should be doing X, Y, and Z. And it can be really tricky to balance that, I think. I need to withdraw because it's painful, but actually I don't want to withdraw because I should be doing X, Y, and Z, or I feel I should be doing. I think it's a really tricky one, early doors, in that grief process, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I remember going going away and being on the beach really, really late in the evening with my dog. Didn't go abroad, obviously, I had the dog with me, but I remember doing that and ringing back and speaking to my brother, who was with the rest of my family, because I felt I needed to withdraw and just be somewhere, not be in the midst of that, because it was lots of children visiting and it was very family orientated, and actually feeling absolute heartbreak for everything, because I really wanted to be with him and I wanted to be with everybody else, but I couldn't, and feeling like, was this wise? Was it okay to be here? And I actually had a real moment of just real kind of, I don't know, homesickness, family sickness. I don't know what it was, but it was just, and it was just being curious about that. At the time I wasn't, but I think now looking back, it's okay, what was I really feeling there, and leaning into that and being curious about what that felt like. What did that mean, without over catastrophizing about those feelings? But yeah, it's that FOMO, isn't it? And trying to turn that perhaps sometimes into the thing I call JOMO, the joy of missing out. And that's really hard. A lot of work to get to JOMO, I think. Around big days like that. But yeah, I certainly can feel that sometimes. Yeah.
I like the way.
Sorry, go on, Mike.
No, you go, Karin. It's okay.
I just wanted to quickly respond to that. I love that term JOMO, and indeed, it takes a lot of work to get to that stage where you're like, yeah, do you know what? I'm choosing me, and it's okay. I'm blissfully happy with just making decisions for me, whatever they look like. Sorry, go on, Michael. Over to you.
Yeah, I was just I like the phrase JOMO because family rifts actually, there's another thing about family rifts at this time of year, that it always amplifies those. There's often Vicky and I have just gone, I just can't be asked. I don't want to go. And so JOMO actually fits in quite well there. Because like you say, it shifts and it morphs, particularly Christmas as time goes on, and there's so many factors that can change that. I mean, now, I've got both my parents, with dementia in a care home, and this is going to be the first year that they've both been there. And so now, what does that do? And then how do we manage? How do we manage ourselves? How do we manage? Well, they're actually quite easy because they won't know what day it is anyway. But it's about how we manage all that. And very, very complex situation, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's be lots of other people out there who are dealing with not only the grief of their childlessness, but then the grief of all the other things that layer that. Oh, yeah. So we've got So we've got a bucket list, is that Vicky said, I want to spend a Christmas in the snow in a log cabin. So now that's about what you're saying, Karin, about what's our festive season look like? What are we doing for ourselves? So that's my mission. I'm Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible, looking through the internet, having a look at what will be our ultimate time that we can experience out of this.
Very, very north of Scotland, possibly over here, but then you go even further north, really, I think, these days. Yeah, maybe you have to tell us. Maybe if you're listening to this and there's some way we can get snow to Vicky, then let us know.
Scandinavia,
snow
Canada, yeah, lots of different places around the world.
Yeah,
but so do you any of you have like a like a bucket list for this time? For this time of year, is there experience at this time of year that you've sort of, I guess, dreamt about, would like to have?
I think
Yeah,
I've done one. Yeah.
Really? What did you do?
They're quite simple, but I don't have one particularly in the sense of that there's nothing like that. I don't know. I always wanted to spend Christmas in Cornwall because I wanted to tick off some stuff that wasn't happy down there. And I did that, and New Year, and we won the pub quiz, which was also great. I don't know how we managed. Anyway, we bought everyone a drink. It was tad embarrassing. But yeah, I did that, and that was amazing. That was something I really wanted to do. And I guess that was probably the bucket list that I wanted to do, just to honour some stuff about fixing and healing somewhere along the line, and to do something different. And I guess that was kind of my bucket list. I don't have one as such for this time of year, but it was kind of healing something that wasn't right within me that I wanted to heal, and I did that, and I was enormously proud. I spent most of the day in tears, but I was okay with it. Really, sometimes, as we've often said on the podcast, it's good to have a cry, and it's okay to be emotional about things. You don't need permission to do that. And I gave myself permission to be able to go and, spend an extraordinarily large amount of money for what was actually quite a small place. But it was lovely with a nice view, and to just go and do something different and not actually do something, I guess, also pajamas, and also just not having to do Christmas dinner. I mean, I don't really anyway. It's okay to have cheese on toast, which is kind of, I think, what I did one year, because I didn't want to do all of that. I don't see why I should. So do something different, I think, is okay, and create something that's a new tradition, or something that just makes you think, oh yeah, do you remember that year we had cheese on toast? Actually, it's quite nice to sit there. I remember when I had cheese on toast. I remember when I did something that looked like this, or remember when I went and volunteered and did something. And I guess probably volunteering, I think, on Christmas Day would be a bucket list for me. I'd like to go and do something like that that's completely different. I think that would be a nice thing to do.
I've had a few things that were on my bucket list for Christmas. One of them is actually spending Christmas in the sun. Just go to the southern hemisphere and just, not have to worry about Spanx and a sparkly dress. None of those things. Just, just walk around in your bikini and I have a body, I have a bikini body, and just, I don't know, eat ice cream for Christmas dinner or something like that. That's always been a thing that I've thought about. But also Michael's idea of a log cabin in the snow, kind of like, I've got those Wham! Last Christmas vibes, just with your friends, with your mates, and just, have that snowball fight and stuff. So I'm romanticizing that idea as well, but I'd like that. But at the same time, as I'm thinking of all these bucket list items that I have, what I'm noticing as well, it's so bloody expensive over this time of year. So I'm like, and does it really have to tie in with that one specific date? I'm just like, I would love actually to get to the stage of JOMO about, not giving a flying F anymore about the 25th of December, that being such a significant date. It could be, I don't know, the 11th of January, or I don't know, the 28th of March for all I care, So if I were to do something like that, maybe I would just bring a string of tinsel, or, bring a Santa's hat, just to kind of, make it Christmas whenever I want to make it Christmas. And if I don't feel like making it Christmas on that particular day in December, I'm not going to do that. I also, what you said, Berenice, have cheese on toast. I remember one year, I just had bubble and squeak. It's just like, wonderful. I didn't have to worry about it. And it just sat in my, in my sweatpants on the sofa with thick socks on, and just, doing what I wanted on that day. So, but yeah, Christmas in the sunshine, I think that would be lovely. This is not my favorite time of year weather-wise here in Western Europe. It feels like we're heading to another 7 months of autumn with just rain and cold. And, if it's winter, I want snow and ice so we can skate and stuff like that, but we don't get that anymore so much here. So yeah, maybe that log cabin in the snow, Scandinavia, it sounds appealing. I'm going to think about this some more. You've triggered my thoughts now, Michael, about what do I need to put on the bucket. I'm experiencing FOMO about my Christmas bucket list.
Can I give you a nerdy fact?
Go on.
Is that all right? Can I do a nerdy fact? Okay, so nerd fact is that on the Julian calendar, Christmas would have been on the 6th of January. I just want to share that. Ooh. So when we switched over to the Gregorian calendar, it was, or Georgian, it was it became the 25th. So actually, we could all just do a alternative on the 6th, because actually it'd be sort of January sales. It'd be quite a bit cheaper, wouldn't it? No one goes away on the 6th of January anywhere. You could get like a ginormous giant log cabin, and we could all go.
Yes.
Yeah. Love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Get snow as well in January, I would imagine. But yeah,
you do. Yeah, certainly around here we've had the fen skaters up, because the fens all freeze, and then you can skate on it. And that has happened once recently, but only very recently. It's very rare, but it's safe enough to do skating all up the fen drains, and it's beautiful to see. It's amazing.
I was going to say, actually,
And you, Sarah?
different. I feel different about Christmas. I don't know why, but we were actually contemplating. I can't believe I've agreed to this. Actually contemplating about going to a pub for Christmas dinner, because I've sort of said I can't be asked to cook this year, just for the two of us. So I'm actually going to go, and I think part of me is excited because I want to be around other people for a change, and just see what other people do. And part of me is a little bit worried because I know there's going to be big families there, and it's just going to be me and my partner. So yeah, I'm trying something new this year, and I've sort of said to my other half, Jim, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I want to give it a go and see what happens. And it could be next year I am in the log cabin on my own, fuck this shit. Don't want to do it again. But I think it's part of that curiosity, perhaps it's part of that journey, isn't it? Is you start to get curious about, well, actually, what do I want? What can I cope with? And I think that's part of the difference, as opposed to that I need to retreat and not do anything at all. But yeah, so we're giving that a go this year. I'll text you all and let you know if it's been if it's worked. It's an absolute shit show.
I do have friends that go out for a curry on Christmas Day. They deliberately go out for a curry because that works quite well for them, because it's not. It's very informal, and it's not necessarily families there, because it's just all sorts of people turn up. There is a couple of places in Cambridge that do that, and it's a bit kind of like the freestyle. It's a bit like popping in somewhere and going out again. It's a bit kind of crazy. Maybe something to consider another year. I can see this kind of row of log cabins in a row, and we're all like, "This is my log cabin, and I'll come and see you when you're kind of like you need some company, when you've sort of if you're okay." But then I'm going to go back again, and I'm doing cheese toasties today. If anyone wants them.
If I find somewhere that has multiple cabins, I'll let you know. But we've had a cheeky comment in the chat talking about Christmas in the sun, and someone's gone, "Oh, let's all go and stay with Michael." Can I just say that Vicky's going to panic now because she's going to think that there's going to be 5,000 people turning up.
Well, Vicky, we will come with food. So Berenice is bringing cheese and toast. Sarah's bringing either a pub lunch or a curry. I'll happily. I'll bring ice cream. So Vicky, no worries.
We're very well trained. We're well trained. Quite self-sufficient. We're okay. Yeah.
Oh, Sarah, I do love that, hearing what you said. Let's try something different, and I think that takes courage, in a sense of also kind of just coming out of our healing journey, going through our healing journey after being childless, and having so many triggers thrown at us for all the reasons we've already talked about. And I think it's lovely that indeed you're just like, you know what, let's do something different this year. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I think that's also what came up for me, is because we're talking about triggers and celebrations. But I like that you're choosing to do something different and putting yourself out there. And indeed, it might be a pub full of family, but it might just be a very relaxed atmosphere and a joyous atmosphere. And maybe you're being whatever might happen on that night. But I think it's also good for anybody who's watching or listening to this, if you do something like that, if you do try and do something different for the holiday season this year, make sure you've got like helplines set up for yourself. So hey, if you do get overwhelmed in the pub, if you do get triggered because you are going to a family dinner, or if you do whatever happens on that day or on this season for yourself, check in with someone who gets it. Have someone kind of on like a standby, or hey, if can I just text you over that period? Can if things get tough, you're like, hey, because we all have those people in our, at least I do, and I hope everybody does. And if you don't, please go and find some either here through the community, here at Full Stop. Just say, hey, or even just check in here on that day itself. Like, oh, I just been to the pub, absolute fiasco. There's always a kind word flying around, I'm sure, and those kind of things, because that's also what really helped me in those early years when I was coming out of that dark period, and I kind of wanted to embrace myself with lights again, just gently dipping my toe into that festive period again. And it's like, and I had people that I could just check in with and say, oh God, that was a complete, absolute clusterfuck of an experience. And someone just, hey, tell me about it. I've got you. I'm sorry, that was tough. So anybody who's listening, have that in place as well. If you are experimenting, if you are trying things out, have somewhere where you can just go like, that didn't work. Can I just offload, or can I just vent? And that you've got some self-care steps in place as well. And allow yourself also an escape plan. If it is overwhelming, it's okay to leave. Again, wherever that is. And I remember one year hearing about someone having to go to a Christmas family do at her parents' house, and they were made to sleep in a tent outside because there was no room in the house, because her sister's children were given first dibs on her old bedroom. And it wasn't in a sunny, warm place. It was cold. There was snow on the ground. Also, if you don't want to get overwhelmed in your family home, what sometimes happens with me as well, book yourself somewhere, either an Airbnb or stay with friends if possible, or find a place where you can be also safe and where you can decompress.
I think that's so important, isn't it? I think that space, just having space just to go and just let it out a bit, I think is really important. And that permission, you do not have to be anywhere. No one should be anywhere where they feel that they should go. I want to rid the world of should, because it adds so much pressure, doesn't it, on us to be somewhere and to be something perhaps that we're not. And it's okay to sort of show up and be nice and polite, and good wishes is fine. But actually, if that's just all someone can do, if all someone can do is just to say, look, actually, this is tough. And that's probably the thing I'm not celebrating, getting curious about this year, is I'm being honest about the fact this is hard for me. Because I think in the past, I've kind of I've retreated and not said anything. And then I have then masked a bit and gone, it's okay, it's fine. I know that last year I certainly did, and I actually had chronic backache, actual lots of physical pain as a result of, I think, being too tense and too stressed, and also not eating. And I hadn't realised that was a physical. I think actually it was probably talking to you, Sarah, about it again, having someone to talk to and going, actually, I got really bad backache and I feel really, really like I can't eat. My appetite has gone. I literally can't eat. And it was on the eve, an hour before I was due to go somewhere that I didn't really want to go to, but I hadn't realised the physical impact of it. And it was only when I'd spoken to someone else or just sat and analysed it all and thought a bit about it, I thought, oh, this is actually an emotional reaction. This is how I'm feeling. And I need to tune into this. So this year, I'm not going. I'm not going to put myself in that position. I'm just not going. When I was asked, well, why aren't you going? Well, actually, this time of the year is hard for me. I'm being really careful and kind to myself, and I'm doing things I want to do, but I'm really sorry if that disappoints you. But I'm not going, and I choose not to go. And I'm okay with that. They'll be fine without me. They don't need me to be around. And to be honest, they probably haven't been that comfortable with me being there anyway, because it's been hard, because it is hard for me. But I've given us all permission, and myself particularly, to go, I need to walk away from that and not do that. But I'll do something else. Let's do something in January or February when it's all a bit miserable. But to sit sometimes and be in a position where I'm the only person at the table without children, and have to listen to people talking about what their kids are up to is too hard. It's too hard. I And actually, to be honest, I think last year, and the year before, I've sat there and thought, I could be doing this, I could be doing that, I could be doing all these things I could be doing with these couple of hours of my time that has been taken up in this way. And this is my time, and my time is important, as is anyone else that's listening to this. Your time matters. It's important to you, and particularly at this time of the year when we do get so much on ourselves. There's so much on our plates, I think, and we're in demand. Perhaps it's nice to claim back our time for us. But I realise that might be because, again, I suppose doing this and getting to a point where I'm okay with saying that not everyone's going to be in a position where they feel they can say that.
I think it takes a lot of courage, because we have a bit of a family rift, or still have, I guess. And so Christmas is really difficult. And so, we towed the line and went to the occasion and just shut up. But it wasn't good for us. We weren't happy. We felt we weren't being true to ourselves. But the alternative was just to say, well, we're not coming. And whilst that was fairly easy for me, that was really hard for Vicky, because that's not. Yeah, it was really hard for Vicky, and so I think we need to recognise it does take a lot of courage to do that. But
absolutely,
what we found was that if people care about you, they will seek to understand. If they don't, well, then that's their problem. That's not yours, and so that's what we took away from that. Is that, if people care about you, they will seek to understand. And like you said, Berenice, I forget about it after, it doesn't become a hot topic after a while. Yeah, we got a bit of flack. What are you doing? Why don't you go over mum and dad's? What, too hard? Can't do it. We're having a time to ourselves. And if I can put a lighter note on that, this may be too much information, but when you were talking about it, Karin, about sitting in your tracky dacks, sitting there eating ice cream, well, the Australian equivalent of that is sitting in your shorts with a big tub of vanilla ice cream under the air conditioner watching TV. And that's what we did.
I was going to say it.
Yeah, sorry
Michael,
for the visuals.
I have a very visual mind. I'm just, I've gone there. Thanks for that. That's going to take me all the rest of this Sunday to kind of get it out of my,
You're welcome.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, great. I could tick one of the things off my bucket list now, I think, Michael. But no, all jokes aside, I do hear you, Michael, and I really like also that you're touching upon that it does take courage to speak up like that and to really stand up for yourself. And Berenice, what you've shared as well is to actually, that's hard. And I've had really difficult conversations also with members of my family, my parents, but also with some of our friends when we were invited, because they really wanted to, for them, it was like, well, you are important to us. We want you to be included in this. We understand it's hard, but we want to, and they were really trying to kind of make it so that we did feel included, that we are part of the family, that we are, and that we do have a seat at the table also during this time of year. And they were trying to be understanding that, and out of the kindness of their hearts, that's for them, that was their act of kindness, and how to be understanding towards us, but not realizing what then the impact of that kindness was for us, because we still had to sit through all the triggering conversations, the children running around, the gift giving, and it being so centered on the small children. My siblings have children. My sister's youngest is 18, her eldest is 24 in December, and my brother's kids are getting into their early teens. So that is shifting as well. So it's not so much the small children and the magic of Christmas from that perspective. It's no longer like this Disney fairy tale Christmas. It's kind of shifting into more like, hey, we can have adult conversations. We can have some more grown-up conversations. Also, that is shifting. But what I wanted to come back to is that for them, it was important for us to be a part of it. So also their disappointment of us saying, you know what, it's too hard this year. I need to look after me. They were disappointed about this. So we had to have that conversation with each other. Okay, hey, I really appreciate that you want me there, but it's too hard for me. And I know that you try to understand, but I really have to look after me. I have to put my self-care first. And I'm sorry that that is disappointing for you, but you're going to have to find a way to navigate your way through that disappointment. That's not up to me to fix. That's what I actually wanted to get to. And so that also, and that it's also okay for people to express their disappointment for you missing out. So then their FOMO of like, oh, Karen's not there. You might be missing. We might be missing out on something because you're not there. And so that was really kind of interesting stuff to talk about also with my friends and my family. And I think having those conversations, having those honest and sometimes really uncomfortable conversations also helped me to keep my boundaries in place, but to keep them healthy, but also to let others reflect on, hey, what does this then mean for me? One of my friends said, but actually, for me, it's not the same without having you there. So I will really, really miss you on that day because, there will be, from my perspective, there'll be an empty seat at the table because you're not there. I said, well, that is pretty close to how it sometimes feels for me because I see the empty seats at the table of my children who I wish were sitting at that table. So I said, so what you're now experiencing, but if you missing me at the table, I said, multiply that by I don't know how much. And then you kind of get a little bit of a small inkling of what it's like for me. And so that was really helpful to kind of break that down in the conversation and to get to that real deeper level of understanding, like why is it hard and what is it about? Yeah. Interesting family or relationship dynamics, I think. But I think it's good to have to be honest about those.
Yeah, I think it felt like that for me. Just to say it, I think not perhaps in my context it was more kind of with colleagues, but again it's just giving a little bit, however I felt and however we feel comfortable giving whatever we'd like to give away from ourselves, but not too much. Yeah. Sarah, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to double back on something Michael said about difficulty saying no, because with my family having honest conversations, that's not likely. Because it means talking about feelings, and my family are
Sarah,
not.
I think
touchy-feely
Sarah's
people.
just frozen. What a cliffhanger!
So it's quite a difficult thing. I think it's kind of got like family that aren't able to talk about feelings or sit with your feelings. I think actually it's quite important to be able to find a middle ground. So for me, early doors, it wasn't about talking about my feelings because that would have been too raw, and I wouldn't. Through no fault of their own, I wouldn't necessarily got the reaction I need. And I'm talking about extended family. I've got a large extended family, all who have children, except me and one cousin. So actually, thinking to like festivities, my nan's 80th, I think it was, there was no choice but to go. But actually, my husband and I, we had safe words. If I gave him a look, it was like, right, I need to walk outside. Where are the toilets that I can dash to? How do we make the excuses when actually I'm at my threshold? And driving and not drinking was a really good one for me because it meant I said, right, okay, I think I hit 90 minutes. I was just like, I am done. And I said to my husband, right, it's time to go. And he said, yeah, no problem. And we just made our excuses, we'd shown our faces and I could go. And then I had the breakdown in the car. But I think it was important for me to be able to say no in my way, maybe, rather than going, I'm not coming anymore. Sometimes it's a non-negotiable, isn't it?
I absolutely can recognise that, Sarah. I wanted to say how much I appreciate you saying that because that's my experiences. My family are very good at broken cars and fixing tyres, and I suspect probably broken legs and things like that. But actually, mental health can be hard to talk about. Grief is hard to talk about. So for me, I've kind of done that. Yeah, the meet in the middle. What can I do that's okay, that's acceptable to me? And again, actually, my brother's wedding was one occasion where I had to go. There was lots of children there I hadn't met before. And yeah, I had to manage my boundaries and actually not actually having a drink. We had a different car at the time and I was terrified driving around the north-south circular of London with a car that I'd never driven before. And I thought if I have a drink then it's going to be bad. But that's kind of when I'd started to not drink as well, so that I could just keep a handle on me and be aware of what was going on inside and just to be conscious of that. And actually my parents to a point were looking out for me too. And it was, okay, this is the point where I'm going to go, right, this is where I need to go. But also knowing I had friends around on text as well, that I could go into a childless community of some description and just sort of sit somewhere quietly out of the way. in the car actually and just text a few people and go, this is a bit difficult for me right now. Can we just talk about something else, or can I just sit and talk about what's going on here? But I knew it was there even if I didn't use it. I just had a safety net. I lasted a bit longer than 90 minutes, but it was working out, because no was not an answer. But sometimes there can be a compromise. Again, going back to the 6th of January, can we do something later? Can we have a meal out? And in fact, actually, Sarah, that links me back to your thing about Mother's Day and doing it on a different day, not on that day, but can we go out afterward? Can we do something in January when it's really just crap anyway? And I'm a great believer as well in fairy light February. Keep the fairy lights up until February. It just makes the house nicer. That's my thing. But what can I do to just make this easier and to have some ease through that? And sometimes it's just meeting in the middle. It's not a no. It's a perhaps, maybe, can we work on a compromise that's going to work for everybody, but particularly for me as well? Because sometimes no just doesn't work with some people, as we've all counted. And sometimes going through the process of saying, no, I can't do it, to someone who will not accept the answer is also painful. And I think we perhaps have to give too much of ourselves away to someone who might not respect or honour that and realise how deep the grief is. And then you get into this kind of justification and defence. I think sometimes, I know I can personally, I can start to defend and start to justify. And actually, you shouldn't have to do that. Not with anybody who really kind of understands and honours the grief that we go through.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear you talk about that, because I recognise that as well. I have done that in the past as well, where it's like, okay, I know isn't an option. I do put myself through that, and I've gone over my own boundaries so many times, especially in the beginning. It's like, okay, I felt obliged to do certain things. Oh, yeah, I can't really say no and stuff like that. And actually, I am now at a stage where I'm okay. If no isn't an option, I put indeed very strict boundaries in for myself. Okay, what is the time frame? How long am I staying? Also, what Sarah mentioned, where are some escape routes in the building, or if it is family Christmas Day and everybody goes for a walk, and like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go on a solo walk, or I'm gonna retreat to my room, or I'll see you in a couple of hours, or even just an hour. I'm just gonna take an hour to myself, and those kind of things. So really just kind of put those elements in there. Again, have that helpline on standby that you can text someone or check in with someone and stuff like that. But I am getting better at saying no, full stop.
Yeah.
No pun intended there. But that is I am getting better at saying no.
Yeah. I think cars are really helpful. When I ever go somewhere, I mean, not everyone drives obviously, but I do, and I like going by train different places. Everyone knows I'm flight free and I like going by train. But actually sometimes just going, okay, I'm going to take the car so that I can go and get something from the car. Or I know I've got an escape. I know I've got some wheels. And I think if anyone's driving, it can be perhaps quite helpful to say, I'm just going to drive myself. That's okay, because I think then you can put on whatever music you want, not necessarily the Christmas tunes. You can go out to the car, sit in the car, drive home, and it's just there. I don't know, just go and sit in the car. I actually find that my car sometimes can be quite a refuge sometimes, in the way that my bicycle sometimes isn't, but at least it's an escape route of some description, particularly I think on the 25th, when there isn't transport perhaps running, and also perhaps being in public transport in and around that time can be also quite difficult too, not necessarily perhaps it's reliability, but also people being on there as well. And I think families being around and travelling. I think just having some wheels, I've often found that as well. It's just useful to have some sort of, it's just a box on wheels, but it can be handy, I think. And also just dog walks as well, grabbing, a dog. I do use my dog as an excuse to not do things, and that's okay too. It's not, it's not necessarily an excuse so much as it's just useful to have to pay attention to that and go, I can't do this because it's okay. If you need something else, then you're doing something else. And I think actually saying I'm not doing something because I'm going to have a bath, I'm going to go and out for a walk with myself, I'm going to go and see some friends, I'm going to go and do something for me, I think that's okay too. We can be active excuses. I think, I have often now these days will say no to things because actually I just want to go and sit in the bath. It's okay. If I want to go and sit in my bath, I want to go and sit in my bath. I have a date with a book. Yeah.
I like that. You, Michael, what are your escape routes, Michael? On days where you feel like obligations or triggers are rife. What are your forms of escape?
I've been thinking about this a lot, listening to you, to the three of you, and about it was something you said earlier, Karin. Now, of course, it's escaped me, that's right. When you talked about having a backup, having some friends, having a backup. Now, to talk to, as Berenice has also said, and I was thinking to myself, like, it's great advice. I'd never do that. My mind, and perhaps it's a gender thing, I don't know, but my mind doesn't go there. I wouldn't. So if I was to go to a situation that I know I don't want to go to, but I have to, I would be absolutely focused on getting there. Just being in the room, may not be as conversational as I usually am, because apparently I have a very hard time hiding my feelings. But at the same time, there's a defiance. The best way I can explain is a defiance. And if I'm not having a good time, I'm just going. I'm not making excuse. And I don't want this to sound like I'm not honouring what you've all said, but I'm going. I'm not making excuses. I'm just going. And if you can't deal with that, that's your problem. And so I'm sitting here thinking, why is my experience so different? Don't know what the answer to that is.
That's cathartic to hear. It's nice to hear that, I have to say. Yeah, I think that's not a negative thing. I think that's good. And in many ways, as your friend, it's nice to know that you do have that attitude. And it's will help somebody here to go, okay, I can do a Michael. Yeah, not go.
Oh, I like that. I can do a Michael, yes. Yeah. And Michael, I love indeed also that you touch upon that. I don't think you've how do you say that? I don't feel that you're not acknowledging anything that's been said. That it didn't come across like that at all. Because I actually recognize it also from my partner. He's very much like, why should I put time and energy on people that don't give, that don't add it, that don't contribute to my life? And I was like, well, hold on a minute, you can't go through life like that. Me being the social bunny that I am, like, and having a huge empathy button and sympathy button and blah blah blah. And I just like, all that. And he's like, why do you spend so much time on things that that do not contribute, blah blah blah? And it's like, well, it's the polite thing to do. He's like, oh, screw that. So if I'm not having a good time, I'm out of here. And sometimes I wish I had a little bit more of that attitude. And then been together for a long time, so he's kind of also now seeing my perspective and his. So we're kind of working together as a team on that now, like where he's able to kind of take me out of a situation earlier than I would normally do, and vice versa. I'm able to keep him there a little bit longer, and kind of see, okay, hey, what works. So I think there's a balancing act there. But is it a gender thing? I'm not sure. Maybe it is. But I like that we've got that option now as well to throw in the mix. Like, you know what? I'm just going to do a Michael. I think it's going to become a thing. I think you should be eating that, Michael.
Well, I'll just say it gets, and as I've got older, it's got worse or better, I guess, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on. Where, look, and I mean this sincerely, if you're not filling my cup, if you're leeching off me, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Gone. Because I can't be asked. I haven't got much longer. Oh my God. Turns around in the sun. I can't be asked. So I'm not doing it.
You've no more fucks to give, basically, have you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then. Do a Michael, bracket. I want to just add one thing in here that, as a saying that occurred to me, if I can. And it is, have nothing in your houses that you do not know to be useful or useful or believed to be beautiful, which is William Morris. And I think if we think about our houses being our lives, then I think that's quite a nice thing to think of. I do have that in the back of my mind a lot. It pops up a lot in my thing, and I will pause in my life and go, is this useful or beautiful? No. And I will quiz that. in all the metaphorical terms that I can. He's talking about art and crafts. He's was an amazing designer, poet. Also was an activist and socialist. Very much appeals to my things, but it is that thing of what's contributing to things. And I think that probably is like a nice bridging point between perhaps us getting curious about what's beautiful and useful. And sometimes we have to go to things to find out this doesn't work, like going to the pub on Christmas Day and being curious about that. And then we can turn around to other things and go, no, you're not beautiful, you're not useful, I'm doing a Michael. There's kind of like a mid-ground in all of that where we can sort of say, okay, is this going to work for us? Is this beautiful? Is this useful? And if it's not, do a Michael.
Michael?
If you feel like you want to do a Michael.
Yeah. Say Michael. Did doing Michael, has that always been part of your ethos?
Good question.
I'm curious in terms of like early doors grief. Were you doing a Michael then, or is this a new thing?
I would say when I was a lot younger, no. But again, I was just finding my way in the world. But I think the grief journey that Vicky and I have been on has honed that, because there's that, but I think a lot of, well, I'll speak for myself. A lot of the ones that we have let fall along the wayside were those that didn't fill our cup. They leached on, and I got a number of, I know those strong words, but that you felt like they're leaching off you rather than filling your cup. And so I guess with practice, it's been easier to let them slide. And so those people that are important to us, we invest in greatly. And so, yeah. So we hope that through our behaviour, you can feel that, with the people that are close to us. And having said that, the people who are on the outside will know that, yeah, we don't want to fraternise with you. You're not part of our life anymore, because we've been through a lot of tough shit. So it's about being authentic. It's about being true to yourself rather than anyone else. And so that's where it started, I guess. Around about 30, I think it started to creep in. Yeah. Did that sort of answer?
No, I think so. I think it is that. I think getting older definitely plays into it, doesn't it? Because it's kind of like,
oh yeah,
as you rightly say, I haven't got that many turns left around the sun. I need to make more of this. But I think early doors, my grief, I was very much a people pleaser. So, my nan's 80th fell at a time when actually my grief was very raw. I was still trying to please people because the shame of letting people down was just too much. But now I find it easier to say no. I call it responsibly selfish. I think it's probably part of doing the counselling as well, as it's really changed my outlook on these things. But I actually find sometimes it is incredibly difficult to say no, but it's thinking, well, is this going to throw me off for a couple of weeks? Or is it easier for me to say no and say, look, I can't do it this time, but actually, like you say, I'll compromise and I'll come up with an alternative, or not at all if you're not the person for me anymore. But it's such a difficult journey, isn't it? I know we're sort of talking about triggers and Christmas, but it takes in so many different facets of how you've got to kind of change, adapt, and learn new ways of being that you've not necessarily been taught as a kid. And I think that's part of it, really.
And I think also probably that our families haven't been taught either, as well. There's no rule book for this, is there? I think that perhaps maybe the community, we're sharing something here that people who are listening to this, who undoubtedly, I think the majority of our audience are childless, not by choice, but actually trying to extend that this is how we're coping. We're trying stuff out. We're being curious. We're trying to work out what's working for us on a day that means so much to everybody else that actually, if it wasn't so commercial, might just drift by. But we're trying to just explore some stuff, and we just need families and friends and colleagues to sit alongside us, or just to be with us as we work through that. But that's a really hard ask of other people as well. Yes, it's their issue, their disappointment to deal with. It can lead to those deep conversations, I think, if we choose to have them. But it's hard for them, and sometimes there's a thing that I don't like using this word. I feel like it's the wrong word, but I haven't come up with an alternative, where the victim, I'm uncomfortable with that word, the victim has to explain in order for others to understand. And that's a really uncomfortable position, I think, to be in. But it's sometimes, I think, where we have to sit, and that's so hard to do if we're being barraged by so much. I mean, I certainly find I'm a little bit easier with it this year, but in the pits of my grief, I go into somewhere in October and they'll be blasting out, oh, Slade gets me. I've cried in supermarkets over that wretched song. I now don't. From now all the way through until January, I don't go near a supermarket. I literally go online. That's it. It's Ocado. I don't do it because I just find it's too hard to deal with that, the music, and it's trying to work out something else. But it can be difficult for other people who might think, oh, we always go to that Christmas market. No, you always go to the Christmas market. I do not always go to the Christmas market, but it's meeting in the middle, isn't it? Somewhere too. I'm rambling, sorry. I'm just thinking about how it might be for listeners, thinking about that word no and setting those boundaries. It sometimes can, it's just being curious, I think, and finding what the trigger is. And then maybe it's having a conversation with other people in the childless community and go, well, this is the thing that sets me off. Again, Sarah and you and I've talked about the music before now as well. Yeah. We've had that chat too, because it's a commonality we have. I actually find classical music less of a problem. So if someone needs to be festive, I can put that on, but not carols, just general, non-vocally stuff. Nothing with words. It's fine. If it's got words in, I'm gone. It's just no point. Yeah.
We've had a comment actually. I was wondering if I could sort of see what we think about this. So somebody said, I find it difficult at work listening to colleagues with young children / grandchildren. They're excited and ask what you're doing for Christmas, and your response is nothing. I hate the feeling. Sorry, hate the feeling sorry for me and the pitiful looks. What do we make of that?
That was kind of what I was inferring when I said that I didn't want to go to this thing and I had the backache and all the things. It was the very similar situation. Yeah. That's hard, isn't it? For me, I've just been brutally honest this year. This time is hard for me, and I've added a proviso that I'm working out what I'm going to do. I think that's again, it's a boundary.
And just thank you for the person who made that comment here, and thank you, Sarah, for reading it out, because it's I had to learn also to find or to give words and to find a language that helped me also to kind of, you called it the victim, Berenice, and I agree with you. It's not the right word, but being the person going through the grief process, going through that, it's sitting with the pain and feeling the feels that come with it. I had to learn, and that really helped me, is also to come up with kind of sentences or little phrases that would actually stop people giving me pitiful looks or making me feel sorry for me, in the sense that I also first said, what do you do? I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to do nothing. And then I was like, well, you know what? I'm having a me day. So I'm just gonna and even if you do have a duvet day and you don't come out at all and you hide under the blanket with whatever, either too much food, too much drink, or just nothing at all, indeed. But what I've learned especially in workplaces where I don't want to give everything of myself away, because they might not be the people who deserve to know everything that is going on with me, but I still have to interact with them. So I was like, you know what? Oh, I'm just, I'm spending Christmas just for me. I'm doing all my favorite things. I'm just, just gonna wear my comfy clothes. I'm gonna go for a nice walk and blah blah blah. So I just made it into an easy answer that just kind of like boom, and left it there. And even though inside I might have felt like I'm a fraud, I'm not, I'm blah 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 blah. But it's like, well, these people do not need to know what else is going on, because they either never going to understand. So then maybe in a way that's kind of doing a Michael as well, just kind of just again putting in a boundary about what is it that you want to share about how you're going to spend that day when people are asking about it, until I'm going to do this with my grandchildren, blah 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 blah. Actually, I'm going to look after me. And I remember when I once did that one of my colleagues gave me a look, and I was like, and I recognized that it wasn't a look of pity. And I said to her, "You're right." I said, "So what am I reading in your face?" And she's like, "You know what? That sounds like heaven." And like, oh. Okay, so so that really helped me, is to come up with, okay, instead of using the word nothing, just kind of come up with little, is it white lies? I don't know, but just come up with the kind of little protective answers to help yourself also to kind of to not be subjected to pitiful looks, or just like, for me that helped to not feed into the narrative.
Yeah, I like that. It's not a white lie so much as it's a boundary setting, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different way of, it's just different words. But
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that because actually that was the situation I found myself in, and I didn't say nothing, but I just said it's difficult for me, which again leads to pity, and pity we do not like around here. And actually, yeah, I haven't decided on my plans yet. I make some choices. I haven't decided, and that's okay.
Yeah, I like it.
I've got a few options on the table.
It sounds more like a dilemma,
decide.
doesn't it? It's kind of, it's reframing it rather than it going, I'm doing nothing and that's making me feel sad. It's actually, do you know what? I'm going to be looking after myself. I'm going to be doing walks. I'm going to be eating loads of crap food. You know, however you want to frame it, isn't it? If you can frame it into something that actually is, do you know what? I'm going to be incredibly responsibly selfish, and I'm going to enjoy myself. Even if you say it's kind of, you don't 100% embody that feeling, but at least it's better than saying, do you know what? If I say nothing, then that's going to go, oh, you're going to go, oh, piff. You know, leave me alone. I don't need that look or that sound. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really useful.
Yeah. It's a really good question. Thank you for asked it. It's really good. The other part to that question is the days after Christmas are difficult too, when you hear what they did for Christmas. And yes, absolutely. That's kind of when I go for the cheap holiday. Just literally go away, don't go back in. If you've got the holiday, then you can create some space. And then by day 3, everyone's back at work and they're just like, it's work. And I think it's long forgotten. I think if that's a possibility and that's a choice, then go and make the most of going somewhere else and getting back to the log cabin again, but you know, maybe perhaps getting away for a little bit. I've certainly done that. I always take the first week of January away somewhere. Just it's non-negotiable. That's just a rule that I have now, and I quite like that as well. It's just, you know, by then I've avoided everything. I think it's always the same with any celebration. I will take a couple of days off or a day off. I mean, different. You know, I'm largely in control of what I do as my own boss, but if I'm in that situation in the past, then I have taken time off after that, and I just don't go back in for a day or two, and then everyone's back on workloads, deadlines, and general blur, and they've sort of forgotten that it ever was a thing in the first place. It's amazing sometimes actually how quickly I think these occasions can actually be forgotten, and everyone's back on kind of January sales and stuff like that too. But the first day back's always the hard one, but by day 2 I think people have forgotten. But yeah, I think set some boundaries, and you know, even if it's just a vacation at home, then go and do something that you want to do, you know, winter walks, that kind of thing. Yeah, are all lovely. We do about walking, but I think walking's good therapy too. Going to catch up with some other friends who happen to be childless as well, if you want to, because doubtless they'll be struggling perhaps as well.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And circling back to what Sarah said, Sarah, did you call it being responsibly selfish?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that term, responsibly selfish, and it's and I've always had an aversion to the word selfish because I have a very negative association with that. But being responsibly selfish, that kind of softens it for me. I really like that, and because I was always used words like, you know, I'm gonna, you know, just take, you know, really really good care of myself. It's like, instead of calling it selfish, it's ultimate self-care. But I like that, responsibly selfish. I'm going to use that in the future. Thank you. That's what's my takeaway from this conversation. It's just like, you know, reframing language and, you know, doing a Michael and being responsibly selfish. I like that. Thank you guys for that.
Doing a Michael and doing a Sarah. No more fucks to give is Michael. Responsibly selfish is doing Sarah. I have nothing to give you guys. Nothing at all. Just, you know.
There was a really good piece of advice that I heard from one of our Full Stop community this morning when we had a chat around this, and you know how it could be quite daunting for someone to try and reframe what they say because it won't be their normal behaviour. But one of the things that they said was you don't have to do it all at once. You can test the waters with just little bits of what I want to say, but it doesn't have to be the whole thing. I can't think how she put it, but it was a fantastic. I'd never thought about it before, but it was a fantastic piece of advice about practice saying what you want to, in small little bits, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Practice with a friend as well. I've certainly practiced words too, and just or to the dog or to a wall or something or a tree. This is literally, how does this feel? Where do I want to put the emphasis on my words here? How do I want to say this in a way that works for me so that I'm not saying somebody else's words? Again, I think we can often get caught up. I think I'm very conscious that on social media we can see lots of advice and lots of things pop up, and it's just like, you can do this and you can do that. That's somebody else's advice, and taking that is great kind of platform. Again, this podcast is taking this as a platform and going, hey, what can I pick out of this? What are my takeaways? Because it might not be everything. You might want to do a Sarah and not do a Michael. Maybe you want to do a Michael and not do a Sarah, and maybe you want to do a Karin. And I don't know, if you want to do a Berenice, good luck to you with that. But all these things that you can take away from this, whatever it works for you, because this is our words. You will have your own words and your own things and your own actions. So don't necessarily take everything we've taken as being the right thing, but look for yours. And again, I think the same is true of social media. I'm seeing an awful lot on social media right now around Christmas and about what to do, what not to do. Pick what works for you. It's not, just because somebody else has had lived childless experience, it doesn't mean that works for them, for you, because you have your own unique situation. And play around with it. I love the idea. For me, having done coaching in the past sort of year and a bit, is one of the words that I took away from all that was being curious. Rather than griefy and angry and upset about how I'm feeling, I'm going to be curious about how I'm feeling. What am I telling myself, and what am I hearing, and what's right, what's not right, and how can I adapt that? Because every year and every situation is different. As you said, Karin, it changes. This one day, and every celebration day, they're like juggernauts rolling into town, but the landscape changes around it, and we all change with it too.
I think that's so true. You've got to make it work for you. I think that's part of it. You can't. Some of the work that I do with my clients is about how they can say their no. I can't put words in their mouth. They've got to have a felt sense of what feels right and what doesn't. And if you get an ick, that's not your no. It's going to be something else. So you have to really feel confident with it, because if there's any where you feel shaky, it's going to come across, and you're not going to be able to stand by it. So it's so true. Find what works for you. Yeah. And I think also it's kind of like this time of the year, if it doesn't quite work for you, it's not a disaster. It's testing it out. And actually you can think of all these words for Easter. You can think of them for Mother's Day, Father's Day, other things that are difficult too. It's just playing around with it and thinking it through and testing some stuff out. And of course, we should mention as well that there's lots of other stuff out there in the community that people can look at this time of the year as well. It's not just us, but again, Sarah, you've got your counselling, and again, talking to you, Karin, as well, with the work that you both do together and individually as well is really important, just to highlight that. We'll put all of that in the show notes as well, along with anything else that we know of as well around support for people too. But you can carry on the conversation with Karin and with Sarah and with us in our online community. But yes, I almost did that right.
No, I love it. So much. Sorry, so much wisdom. I really love it, and it reminds me of what you were both just saying. But find your voice, find your words, try what works for you, learn, get inspired also by the conversations that we had today here as well. And it reminds me of how we as human beings learn to walk. And when we experiment, we fall down so many times, but we keep getting up, because the ultimate goal is learn how to walk. And that's something that I often also use as an example. We've for those who are able able to walk. It is trial and error. It is experimenting. What works? Where can I pull myself up again and again and again and again and again? And I think that's the same thing with learning how to navigate your way through this whole journey. It's find what works for you. Thank you for that, ladies. And Michael, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
That was great to see you, Karin. Really is.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Thanks for listening. We hope you found our conversation with Karin as practical and as informative as we did. We'd love to hear from you if you found this topic interesting or been able to find a new way of being with the festivities. If you'd like to find out more about our podcast, or you have a great idea for a topic we've not yet covered, or you just want to know a bit more about, we'd love to hear from you. We want this podcast to have as many voices from across our community as possible, so if something's missing or you just want a deeper dive on it, let us know. You can find us on Facebook, Insta, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can also become a member of our online community, which is a safe and inclusive space for anyone that's a member of the Childless community. More details are available on our website at www.thefullstoppod.com. You can also sign up to our listeners list at the website, which keeps you up to date on what we're up to, and if you'd like to, you can also donate to our work too. But always, it's important for us to remind you, you're not alone. It was a late.
Were you out partying?
Well, you are a year older.
That is true.
Dare you?
That's a good warm up.
Well, Sunday mornings just aren't the same anymore, Sarah. It takes a bit longer to get started.
Well, I'll be honest, I've not seen past midnight for quite a long time.